Hello and welcome to NewsHour from the World Service of the BBC, live from London with Owen Bennett-Jones today. And good news on the breast cancer front for many women who may no longer need to undergo chemotherapy. Also coming up, NATO member states are assessing how to improve their defences against drones after one hit an apartment complex in the Romanian city of Galați on Thursday night. Romania's president gave us an interview, tells us there's no doubt the drone did come from Russia.
It's sure because we had another one 4 or 5 weeks ago that didn't explode. We compared both drones and they are completely identical.
More from Romania's president, Nica Jordan, in around half an hour's time. There are no reliable statistics for how many women have chemotherapy for breast cancer each year, but it will run certainly into the hundreds of thousands. And as anyone who has seen chemo close up knows, it is a brutal treatment. Well, the need for that chemo in many breast cancer cases may be coming to an end. Chemo significantly reduces the risk of a recurring cancer, but if you don't have the kind of cancer that recurs, there's no point having the chemo. In this new breakthrough, scientists have come up with a test that can work out which kind of tumour you have very early. Professor David Miles is a consultant oncologist at the Mount Vernon Cancer Centre in London. The centre's been involved in this research and he has over 20 years' experience in the field. So how big a breakthrough is this?
I think this is a practice-changing breakthrough. This is a study that was initiated in the UK at Mount Vernon at UCLH with colleagues of ours, including many patients over many years. And what this study will allow us to do is to say to patients that they can safely avoid the use of chemotherapy following surgery. And we can have a lot of confidence in that because essentially this test was tested in a very large study. We've heard it presented at the American Society meeting. And I think this is going to be practice changing. It means that many women with breast cancer who were previously exposed to chemotherapy, knowing that there'd be a small benefit, we can now confidently predict many patients will get no benefit at all, and therefore there's no need for them to have the chemotherapy.
Exactly. So what you're saying is that something like, a lot of women get the chemotherapy, but most of them don't actually need it because they're not getting a recurrence, and it's something like 90%.
Owen, I'd say either they're not getting a recurrence or their particular sort of cancer is not terribly sensitive to chemotherapy. And I think that's the key point. We have other predictors. We know from tests done on cancers, breast cancers, which cancers will respond to hormone treatment, which cancers will respond to Herceptin. But we have no idea who responds best to chemotherapy, or most importantly, who doesn't really need chemotherapy. And that's the key finding of this study. And I think it's going to change practice UK and worldwide.
Now, the DNA is a very early indicator of a problem ahead, isn't it? That's another point about this.
That's exactly right. And what really this test is doing, the Prosigna test, is taking a snapshot of the DNA of the cancer that is removed from the patient. So the patient doesn't need any additional tests. It's simply that the pathology department will send the tissue away for this test, and it looks at various genes expressed in that tumour and helps us figure out who will not benefit from chemotherapy. And you're absolutely right. Those with higher scores on this Prosigna test, they will need chemotherapy, but we can now confidently define a large population of women who simply aren't going to benefit and don't need to go through all that unpleasantness for no benefit at all.
This is rather in line with so much of cancer research. Enormous amounts of money have been spent on cancer research over the last 30 years. And at the beginning, there was all this talk of, a cure. And it's not been like that, has it? It's been lots of significant but not enormous advances, lots of little advances.
Owen, I think you're absolutely right. I've been in the field of oncology for 40 plus years now, and the steps that we make are very, very small. I absolutely agree with that. And cure is a word that many of us still struggle with. I think what has really importantly developed in the last couple of decades is actually doctors doing less. So, for example, the surgeons doing less radical surgery. And now we've got a stage where we used to fire chemotherapy to 100 women to benefit 10, knowing that 90 didn't need it, either because it wasn't going to help or because they were a good risk anyway. And now we are backing off. So what is so important about this study is that it's a test of the test. We can reliably say that with a low score on this test, chemotherapy is not going to be helpful. And that is a massively important step. So you're right. The research is about escalating treatments and making small steps forward. But at the same time, it's recognizing and helping to recognize those patients who aren't going to benefit. And that's just as important.
One thing I don't quite get about all this is all this research has been presented in terms of breast cancer. But if a breast cancer tumour gives off this DNA you can detect, surely every tumour would, or am I wrong, other tumours would do it as well?
I think other tumours will do, yes. And I mean, there's no doubt that these platforms are being applied in other tumour types as well. So the sense is, let's not just keep piling on treatments where we know in many cases they won't help. So I think, the step going forward really is very much about targeting our understanding of the biology of cancer as a whole, let alone breast cancer. And it's by exploiting that understanding that we can make better and more finesse decisions about treatment.
There must be a financial aspect to this. I mean, it's going to save so much money in terms of chemo treatment that this test is very, very valuable. And presumably, you can charge an awful lot of money for it. Who gets the profits out of a breakthrough like this in this whole area of cancer research?
That's a very, very good question, and the funding of this is going to have to be investigated. But I mean, essentially, what one is saying is that the firm, Veracyte, who produce this test, will make a charge, a one-off charge for the test. But in all that, exactly as you say, if it means that so many fewer women will need chemotherapy, and the expense and the time and the anxiety that causes, that is of great value. But I mean, the acquisition of the test is, to be determined. I cannot, unfortunately, tell you how much this test costs, but, that is something that is going to be raised. And here we're talking about, let's say roughly, 1,000 or 2,000 per test, but the reality is that test is potentially going to save a lot in terms of provision of care, chemotherapy, etc., and the agony and the trouble that patients go through when they have the chemotherapy. So I think, the benefit, is absolutely to the patient, and showing that is relevant and that we can be confident about that has come about by the incredible work of the Optima Committee, Rob Stein, Andreas Makris, all our colleagues on there, that have done this work. So I think cost is absolutely important, but here we're actually talking about doing less, not simply piling on more treatments that cost sometimes hundreds of thousands.
Yeah, no, take the point, but it just means that the test is so valuable. But anyway, how quickly will this be rolled out, do you think, that women who are facing chemo might think, I might not need to do it?
I would hope that in the coming months,
we're
going to get approval for this, get it costed, get it presented, and understand what the impact for our patients is going to be.
And that was Professor David Miles. He is a consultant oncologist at the Mount Vernon Cancer Centre here in London. The centre's been involved in the research. And listening to that was Tanya Hudson, who was diagnosed with breast cancer back in 2022. And I think, Tanya, you had chemotherapy and hormone blockers, so very tough treatment, and you're now in remission. But just tell us, what do you think of what you've just heard?
Hi there. I think it's absolutely amazing, and I think it just proves what happens when money is put into research, whether it's for lobular breast cancer, normal breast cancer, testicular cancer. All the cancers, when money is put into research, things happen and, changes are made. And I think it's just, it's exciting. It's really exciting.
Just tell us, for people who haven't, experienced it or been close to someone who has, how tough is chemotherapy?
It's really hard to explain. It's I remember my oncologist saying it would be like a really bad hangover. but actually it's far, far worse. It's like your whole body inside is wobbly. It's coming away from your skin. It's just, you don't sleep for the first few days because of the steroids you're on. You lose your hair. I put on weight. I was never sick, thank goodness, and that is something I'm really pleased about, but that was because of the anti-sickness tablets that I was taking, and it just it's brutal. It's really brutal.
How long did it go on for in your case?
I had 6 rounds, one every 3 weeks. So I started in October and I finished the end of the next January.
Right. So it was a good chunk of a year, sort of a third of a year or something. And as you say, in that time, you're pretty inactive. There's not a lot you can do.
No, you try. I remember a doctor saying to me once, try and stay as positive as you can and as active as you can. And I think that does help. When you can get up, move around, go for little walks, see your friends, but listen to your body. When your body says, no, I need you to just lay in bed today, then do that, or make a little nest on the sofa like I used to do. So you have to listen to your body and just do what your body can.
Yeah, the professor's basically saying that something like 90% of women, get the chemotherapy and don't actually need it, but they can't tell who needs it, who doesn't, until this test came along. So it's quite possible that you went through all that and actually didn't need it.
Yeah, yeah. I think if you need it, great. Just get on.
Exactly. Then you have to put up with it. Yeah.
If you don't, and for all these people out there that don't need it but are still getting it, it's an absolute game changer. And I think having targeted treatment like what they're now talking about, it's amazing, because one size does not fit all.
How are you now after going through it?
I'm good. I it's 4 years on now. I'd say the last few months I've sort of started to pick up the pieces properly and get my strength back. And it's a long journey. It's a long journey, but I'm getting there, definitely.
That is a long time, 4 years, and you're just getting back right. Well, good luck to you, and we wish you well. And thank you very much for sharing your experience of actually being on chemo. That was Tanya Hudson. You're listening to the World Service of the BBC. Coming up a little later, as US Secretary for Defence Pete Hegseth hits out at allies for freeloading, we hear from one of the countries he singled out.
New Zealand's not a freeloader, and I think the context of his remarks are really important. I think historically we've invested at a lower level than many of our friends and partners and allies, but the important thing to note is that we are increasing from that historic underinvestment.
Some headlines. The aid agency MSF, Médecins Sans Frontières, says no previous Ebola outbreak has recorded as many cases so quickly as the current one in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The US, Britain and Australia have announced a joint programme to develop undersea drones. And Russia is ramping up pressure on Armenia's President Nikol Pashinyan for strengthening ties with the West ahead of next weekend's election. The World Health Organization's Director General, Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, is on his way to Bunia in Congo at the heart of the Ebola outbreak. In fact, he's arrived just an hour or two ago. It's an attempt by the WHO to highlight this outbreak and the risks posed by Ebola, which in the region has affected already 1,000 people at least and killed over 200. The WHO needs funds to combat this, and fundraising is not going well. This is what Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said when he landed in Bunia.
The communities understand the problem better, and they know the solution as well. So I came here to show support, to listen to the communities, and help based on what the communities think we should help with.
Well, we can speak now to the BBC's Africa correspondent, Barbara Plett-Usher, who's in Nairobi. He says the communities know how to deal with this, but the truth is, he also needs money to help them do it, isn't it?
Yes, that's a big part of it. He said that a third of what they've asked for has come in terms of funding. And I mean, the bigger picture is that there have been cuts to global health aid in the past year or two, especially from the U.S., not only from the U.S., but they were putting in the lion's share through the UN, through USAID, and so on. So that has had an impact on the response. It's actually had an impact in the run-up, too, because the surveillance mechanisms in place, and, this is the 17th Ebola outbreak that the Democratic Republic of Congo have seen. So they have experience, they have systems, but because aid agencies had to scale back with these cutbacks, they didn't have as wide a network as they might have done. And that's one of the reasons, not the only reason, but one of the reasons why it spread undetected for a while. Now, the U.S. has come back and said, we are giving money. We've given $112 million. We're giving money to set up health centers. But aid agencies on the ground have said that the kind of support they were able to give in the DRC before had been severely affected. And they're basically paying catch up now, partly for that reason.
Yeah, so the WHO have gone there. He's basically trying to raise the profile of the issue, I guess.
Yes, he is. I mean, when he came into the DRC, he put out a lengthy letter, and a good part of it was just sort of trying to show moral support for the Congolese people, saying that I know how you feel, you are not forgotten, I'm doing everything I can to help you. We've combated this before, we've beat it before, we'll beat it again. But he does need that international support, not just money, but people, logistics, supplies, and so on, in order to scale up the response. And you do have, as I said, the U.S. had done so. The UK has put in 20 million pounds. He met with international countries, emissaries or whatever in Kinshasa before he came, with the idea being to coordinate all the different elements of it to put together a system that can actually contain the virus, because this virus is a species that doesn't have a vaccine. So you have to go back to the basics. You have to have surveillance, you have to have testing, you have to have isolation of cases, you have to have contact tracing, and then careful burying of the bodies. And so that's all very important to set up. And I would just add, he mentioned about the community engagement. That's hugely important for something like this, because they have to cooperate. And there has been a lot of mistrust and misinformation amongst the community.
Just very quickly, I think there may be some travel bans coming in for people from the Congo and maybe even Uganda and so on nearby.
Well, there are travel bans for the DRC, for the Uganda and South Sudan in various forms in countries like the U.S., in Canada, the Bahamas, and so on, and increased restrictions. Uganda and Rwanda have closed their borders. And the Americans have been trying to set up a quarantine center in Kenya, which has been put on hold by the courts because of local opposition. But I should say the WHO advises against any sort of travel bans. It says research shows they don't work really. In fact, they can be counterproductive, and there are ways to manage cross-border travel.
Thanks so much. That was Barbara Plett-Usher there in Nairobi. And welcome back to NewsHour. The US Defence Secretary has told attendees at a regional defence forum in Singapore that the US needs partners, not protectorates. Speaking at the Shangri-La Dialogue today, Pete Hegseth criticised American allies in the region for freeloading.
It is a two-way street. You don't have a strong alliance unless everyone has skin in the game. No freeloading.
And there were questions after that, and in one of the answers, he said he talked about specifically New Zealand. Well, the BBC's Suranjana Tawari spoke to the New Zealand Defence Minister, Chris Penk, on the sidelines of the conference.
New Zealand's not a freeloader, and I think the context of his remarks are really important. I think historically we've invested at a lower level than many of our friends and partners and allies, but the important thing to note is that we are increasing from that historic underinvestment up to 2% of GDP. And the context of his question was around whether that's an appropriate mark. It could be that we go beyond that, but that's a question for future New Zealand governments. And in the meantime, it's important that we continue to play our part, as we are already around the globe in many different ways.
Washington's pressure had anything to do with New Zealand's decisions?
New Zealand's making its own decisions, but we're doing the thing that they're asking to do, but we're doing it because it makes sense for us. And it makes sense for our Pacific cousins, and it makes sense for us to do in concert with our Australian ally.
Have you spoken to any US officials about that call for increased defence spending, and does it change the nature of the relationship between the US and New Zealand?
The US-New Zealand relationship's really strong, and I can say that on New Zealand's behalf, but also I met with Secretary Hegseth. We had a pre-planned bilateral that took place very shortly after the session at which he spoke, and also responded to the question from the New Zealand journalist. And it was a very warm engagement, and we both emphasised our mutual desire that New Zealand will continue to do things in a way that's helpful for the benefit of the international rules-based order. The US will continue to play the part that it sees as appropriate, and we can work together in that way to further the aims of freedom of navigation in particular, that are so crucial for Pacific Island nations, including New Zealand.
The AUKUS ministers are meeting. Is there a sense that New Zealand's been left out of that strategic partnership?
No, I think the AUKUS members, currently of course the three whose names give rise to that particular acronym, will continue to work towards what might be called Pillar 1, the original conception of that deal. Clearly New Zealand's not part of that, and we don't seek to be. As for what participation might look like for a so-called Pillar 2, we've said that we're happy to remain part of the conversation about that possibility, but we'll need to see a bit more detail about what those partners plan before we can make a decision as a government whether we would support that in the sense of participating.
New Zealand has a very strong economic partnership with China. How do you balance the security situation?
Yeah, we have good relationships in the region and further afield along many different lines. So, for example, in relation to China, yes, we trade well with them. We've got an economic security element in both directions, by the way. There's no reason for us to be provocative, but then again, nor do we wish to be provoked by any nation.
And that was New Zealand's Defence Minister, Chris Peck. As you may have heard in the news yesterday, a Russian drone hit a block of flats in Romania, causing a fire and injuring 2 people. Ukraine said it proved again that Russia posed a real threat to Europe. It's not the first time this has happened in Romania, but it is the first time that people have been injured there. Julian Worricker has been speaking to the Romanian president, Nică Dan, and asked him if he was sure that this was a Russian drone.
First of all, it's sure that that was a Russian Geran 2 drone. It's sure because we had another one 4 or 5 weeks ago that didn't explode. We compared both drones and they are completely identical. So we can say for sure that it's a Geran 2 Russian drone. Secondly, we know the path. So in fact, there was a swarm of drones, of 43 drones that targeted Reni port, which is the western Danube port in the Odessa region. So the western part of Ukraine in the Black Sea region. And there was a swarm of 43 drones that came from east to west. And one of them, hit by the Ukrainian army, changed the direction and passed to the Romanian territory. That's sure. We know the trajectory of all the 43 drones.
So this was not a targeting of Romania. This was as a result of the Ukrainian intervention against the Russian drone.
Exactly.
You've since closed the Russian consulate in your country and expelled the consul there. Is that the extent of your reaction at this stage, or will you do more?
For the moment, we had in the last 2 years, there have been maybe 20, 30 drones, which have not been, in the beginning, we have been not loaded with explosive. But we had 1 month ago, we had another one with explosive that fortunately didn't explode. So it became dangerous for the Romanian citizens. And when the Russians are targeting towns that are on the other side of the Danube, they have to be sure that they do not provoke injuries for the Romanian citizens. So it's a warning for the Russian side, that measure, and I hope that they will stop. If not, there are another measure that we can take against them.
Right. What might that other measure be?
exposing the ambassador, for instance.
So that's an option that you're considering, is it?
Yeah, there is a diplomatic hierarchy of measures that, yes.
And are you confident that the Americans, key, arguably, probably not arguably, the most significant members of NATO, are going to back you in any further measures that you want to take here?
Yeah, I'm sure, because it's a process. They already gave us some equipments. So we have some American equipment, but for just one piece of the border, not for all.
And just one final word on NATO and the funding of NATO. Clearly, there's a great deal of pressure on member countries to put more money into NATO. It's certainly something that the Americans are keen to see happen. Can you pledge that Romania will do that in the light of what's happened here?
Yeah, sure. So we agreed all in Hague that we have to increase first the money and then the capacities. And we increase as Romanians. But more than that, we organized 2 weeks ago the B9 summit. There are the 9 countries on the east side of NATO, and the Nordic countries were being also invited. We all agreed that we have to continue to increase the amount of money and to develop in our countries the military industry needed.
And that was the president of Romania, Nica Jordan. And listening to him was the BBC's Sarah Rainsford, who spent many years studying and working in Eastern Europe and Russia and is now in Romania. So, well, what do you make of what he said?
Well, it's interesting, I think, that there's been a lot of condemnation of what has happened here in Galați, which is where I am now. Lots of international leaders, Romania's allies, coming out and giving strong words, strong condemnation of what they are also clear was a Russian drone slamming into a block of flats here. But I think I would also note the fact that the reaction is quite cautious. So far all Romania has done is to expel one consul general and to close down a consulate. Of course, Russia is up in arms about that anyway, but the response is quite cautious. And I think it's interesting that nobody has come out and said that they believe this was a deliberate Russian targeting of Romania, of course a NATO country and EU member. So fairly cautious, but I think there is a lot of concern here, a lot of worry. I'm in Galați itself. I've just been to the building that was hit by the Russian drone. I've been up onto the 10th floor, onto the roof of that building, and I've seen where it struck, and I've spoken to residents of the building, and they are really quite scared. You know, people who were asleep in their beds. It was 2 o'clock in the morning when that drone hit the building. Absolutely terrified, of course. But I would also say it could have been a heck of a lot worse. You know, this building now has a big hole in the roof, but the drone hit the elevator shaft on the roof of the building, so it didn't directly smash into a block of, into anyone's flat. But nonetheless, 2 people were injured, a woman and her teenage son. And had this drone just been a few meters lower, I think the damage and potential for loss of life would have been a lot worse. And it certainly is the most serious incident of its kind here in Romania since the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, and it comes at a time when I think the risk of that war escalating and expanding has never felt greater.
But as you say, not deliberate. At least no one's saying it was deliberate. So what are the Russians saying about it? I mean, you might think they'd apologise, given that it wasn't done on purpose.
Well, the Russians are blaming the Ukrainians. They're saying that Ukraine, well, first of all, they're saying that there's no evidence that this was a Russian drone. So President Putin, first of all, denied knowing anything about any drone. And when he was supposedly told about it at a press conference in Kazakhstan, he said, where's the evidence? Which is what he always says, prove it was a Russian drone. Well, Romania has said very clearly they have that evidence. They are 100% sure that this was a Russian drone. And frankly, those are Russian drones that are flying over that particular border area, and they have gone off track before. So, Russia will just do everything to dismiss this and say it's nothing to do with Russia, and to say this is an attempt by Ukraine and its allies to blame them, to cast them as the bad guys. But quite clearly, I think Romania and NATO are concerned because there are hundreds of Russian drones flying now every single night over Ukraine. Ukraine is launching hundreds of drones pretty much every day back against Russia. And so the potential, given the electronic warfare that's going on, the spoofing, the jamming of those drones, the potential for this to spiral into something really dangerous, I think, as I say, has never been greater. And you can feel that here in Romania. You can feel the tension. You can feel the concern. They are a NATO member. They don't feel protected. They feel very vulnerable here.
Thank you very much for bringing us up to date with what people are saying in Romania. That was the BBC's Sarah Rainsford. There's a big football match in Hungary tonight. It's Paris Saint-Germain against Arsenal, the Champions League final. The winner will get around $9 million in prize money, but when good players cost over $100 million, that's really pretty small change. So to a large extent, this is really about the glory. Although global TV audiences are never easy to pin down, it is reckoned there will be 3 to 4 times as many viewers of tonight's game compared to the Super Bowl. Soccer is global. When Arsenal won the English Premier League just a few weeks ago, there were actually celebrations in many African cities. But we're talking now to a PSG supporter, Clovis Casali, a senior reporter at France 24. He's Franco-British, lived in North London, which just happens to be where Arsenal are based, but also Paris-based with these North London connections. Who's he supporting?
I've got two favourite teams, Paris Saint-Germain and Arsenal. My mum coming from North London, but clearly I'm a Parisian person, born and raised here. So tonight, Paris Saint-Germain.
I knew that because when I asked how to pronounce your name, you said maybe Clovis, which is the French way, rather than Clovis, the English way, or, could it be either?
Exactly. Today it's Clovis for sure.
Okay. Now then, Paris Saint-Germain are brilliant, but of course it's all just purchased with Qatari money, isn't it, in the end?
Well, we do have an amazing squad, and it's thanks mostly to Qatar's money. I think the Qatar has been building this team for years and years and years, but Luis Enrique, the coach, really added that special touch, making this squad pretty amazing and arguably the best team in the world currently.
Yeah. There's a surprising number of French players. Isn't that right? Someone was telling me out the other day that, whereas a lot of the leading European teams are very international, a lot of PSG's players are French.
Well, yeah, and the staff this time around, these last few years, really wanted to build upon that French talent because there's huge talent also in Paris and its region. A lot of homegrown players in some of the best teams in the world. So the staff, Qatar especially, wanted this Paris Saint-Germain team to finally reflect that and have quality French players. So you've got Doué, Barcola, you've got loads of very talented players in this squad, and of course Ousmane Dembélé, who's up front, the current Ballon d'Or.
Now, PSG attack, Arsenal defend. Is that fair analysis?
I think so. I think we have got the best attacking armada in the world. But we will be facing Arsenal with that great defence. So Paris today, I'd say cautiously optimistic. Optimistic because indeed we're the reigning champions. We have got all that talent in the squad. But at the same time, Arsenal, particularly convincing in the Champions League, of course, just crowned champions of the Premier League. So we have to be careful. Arsenal's got that special defence. But if you ask me, there's one player we need to be worried about, and that's Declan Rice. So if we neutralise Declan Rice, I think the cup will be for Paris.
Okay, now I need to ask you a question, which again will draw on your knowledge both of, North London and Paris, which is last time round, when PSG win, obviously people go out onto the streets to celebrate, but it can turn quite nasty and burnt cars and that kind of thing. Just now when Arsenal won the Premiership, it was very good-natured and there were just people out smiling and drinking and so on, but no violence, no fighting. Why is that difference there, do you think?
Well, I'd like to stress that the people who are causing chaos on the streets of Paris, burning cars, looting shops last year when we won the Champions League are not real Paris supporters. They're more like vandals and thugs who just turn up and who pick up on the occasion and the opportunity to just voice their anger. So they're not real football supporters. Nevertheless, it is a real problem, and that's why you've got authorities mobilizing so many police forces this time around, banning, for instance, a march, a parade if Paris wins on the Champs-Élysées. And there are fears running high that there could be more looting and violence, and Paris Saint-Germain needs to prevent that also by calling on its supporters not to cause chaos, even though, as I just said, it's not real Paris football supporters.
I take the point, but and it used to happen in the UK. I mean, football hooliganism was a big problem in Britain, but it does seem to have diminished, and it hasn't really diminished with you yet.
Indeed, I was talking to people about it yesterday. People saying, look, in England, they managed to tackle hooliganism. We need to do the same thing in France. But we did do at Paris, especially with the Plan Le Pro a few years ago, because there was a real problem with hooligans, even leading to the death of a supporter years back outside the Parc des Princes. They got rid of all hooligans inside the stadium, and that managed to pacify the atmosphere in the Parc des Princes quite a lot. Even though you will have some people who'll say, okay, it's great to have hooligans out, but the atmosphere isn't as great as it used to be in terms of chanting. There's a lot more, say, tourists. When you go to the Parc des Princes now, you've got a lot of supporters from around the world who just come to see those brilliant stars, whether it was Messi in the past, Mbappe, Neymar, and now Ousmane Dembele. So the atmosphere isn't as heated, let's say, as it used to be. And I think it's the same thing in the Premier League. I went to the Emirates a few years ago and I found the atmosphere pretty quiet, I have to say.
Mm-hmm. And now then, your mum is the one from London, isn't it? You're half French, half British.
Yes, absolutely. My mum's from North London, all that side of the family from North London. So from an early age, really enjoyed watching, supporting Arsenal. And when this final came up, Arsenal, Paris Saint-Germain, I can tell you I got messages from around the world from friends saying, this is the ideal final for you. Not really, because it's a bit tricky because I have to turn my back to Arsenal and support my number one team, and that's Paris Saint-Germain. And but I mean, I was born and raised in Paris, been following Paris for all these years, bad times, good times. And clearly for the past couple of years, it's been a delight to watch Luis Enrique with that amazing midfield, Vitinha, Zaire Emery, and João Neves. And up front, of course, that magic touch of Ousmane Dembele, Doué, Barcola. Watch out for those guys. And of course, the Georgian forward, Kvaratskhelia, who's an amazing player who never gives up, who's got that fighting spirit that we like so much also in the UK.
What does your mum do with you? You're so enthusiastic about what does your... Are you going to watch with your mum?
I'm not going to be watching with my mum, I have to say. She'll be taking care of my baby while I'm outside in a bar watching it with some friends.
Oh, my
But
goodness.
just to give you some information on the atmosphere in Paris, it's very difficult to book a table in any bar. Usually you can. This time, no bookings. First come, first serve. So we're going to have to turn up pretty early to try to get a table in a bar here in Paris.
More work for mum then. Clovis Casali there with his hopes for PSG in that Champions League final that takes place in Hungary later on today. And that's it for this edition of NewsHour. Thanks for listening. I'm from Owen Bennett-Jones in London. Goodbye.